No guest.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Eating at a Meeting. I am Tracy Stuckrath, and it's nice to see you. I am not in Vegas. I'm actually in the home studio, so I'm excited to be here. And I just wanted to kind of recap what I experienced last week at IMEX, which was fantastic. And then, going on to another conference this tomorrow up in New York City, and then just things that I've seen in the news lately about food and beverage in general. So, hello, and I hope you're having a good Wednesday. So just to recap last week at IMEX, it was a great show, over 12,000 attendees, and there were 4,000 buyers, so 4,000 planners who were there specifically to meet with the 3,300 exhibitors there selling their space, their cities, their hotels, their convention centers. And the floor was hopping busy, and it was really nice to see everybody back for that. Smart Monday was jam packed with education on Monday, produced by MPI, which was really good. Mark Cooper from IAC and I both had a session, or we did a session together, I should say, on the social aspects of sustainability. And we had about 50 people in that session, which was good. And we talked about how, where does social impact come into sustainability, and that comes in, how you're treating your employees, your guests at the properties, how your attendees are treated at events, what you can give back to the communities that you're in supporting wherever that event is being held, and just the overall climate aspect of where your meetings are held. So we gave a lot of good information about how to measure your impact of your events, as well as what does it mean to be socially impact the communities there. So, if you're a venue, does that, and your meeting planner looking at that venue, does that venue provide walking paths? Is it near outdoor space, or does it have outdoor space that you can utilize? Is there outdoor space for your attendees to utilize on their off time? Are they sourcing locally from different farmers around the area? And what are you doing for your attendees who have dietary needs? Are the venues have vegan options, vegetarian options? Do you manage dietary restrictions? And then can you actually donate the food and beverage after the fact? So those are some of the things that Mark and I talked about in that session. One of the things that really kind of struck a nerve with both Mark and I is that when we did ask the attendees what they are doing about sustainability in their requests for proposals and their events, only about 3 to 5 people raised their hands, which was about 4 people raised their hands to say that they were actually implementing sustainability options in their events and trying to measure that. And we also actually, from another session that I stepped into with my friend Aurora, and another one that Mark heard about the same number of people were asking that. So out of 150 people, only about 15 people, 10% of the attendees, meeting planners, were actually incorporating sustainability efforts into their programs. So we really want to make sure that we're doing that, and that we're incorporating those steps into our meetings so that we can actually give back. And a statistic that I put out the other day, on October 16th, which was Sunday, which was World Food Day, we really need to give back. I mean, in the meetings industry, and I've said this in all of my sessions that I give, that US based meeting planners spend $64 billion a year on food and beverage. That's directly and indirectly. So it could be an offshoot of an event that you're doing at a restaurant, or eating on the way to your meeting. But, it's $64 billion. And then with the amount of food that goes to waste in the US, which the Feed America estimates it to be about 40%. That's a lot of money. That's about $23 billion that goes to waste. So how can we reduce that waste at our meetings and events? And so that's, really something that we can easily, target and look at. I think IMEX did a great job this year on labeling their food. One thing that they did do differently this year is they had two concession areas on the trade show floor, and they two and a half, I should say. There's one little tiny one, but two big main ones. And last year in 2021, they had in one concession they had a large number of food items to choose from, nachos and hot dogs and hamburgers and other things like that. And then on the other one, they had more like grilled fish and rice and vegetables and things like that. And what they did this year, and this actually helps reduce food waste, is they served the same food in both concessions. So they weren't actually purchasing a lot of more extra food, to cover both concessions with the thinking that people were going to go to both. They actually made it the same, which helped reduce on, purchasing needs as well as waste from those concession stands. They also did really well on labeling the food items. I wish I had a picture that I could share with you really quickly. I should have been prepared for that. But they did I liked about it is in front of both concession stands, they had a digital sign. Let's see if I can pull it up on my phone. They had a digital sign that listed every single thing on the menus, as well as labeled it for the different dietary restrictions. And then when you went to the different buffets within the concessions area, they actually had a lit up sign that listed everything that's on that buffet, including dietary restrictions. And then in front of each food item, they also had what that food item was and the dietary restrictions. I thought it was great. It was communicated very clearly, and they did their due diligence in making sure that there were multiple places for that communication. And so I thought that was really well done. And I haven't done a full audit of what everything that was served there, but I do think there was a large gamut. There was a lot of vegetarian options. There were gluten-free options as well. They noted for dairy-free as well. So lots of different options for people to have. There was fresh pizza being made on site, and you had cheese, the meat lovers, and the vegetarian version of that. So that was great. No gluten-free option on that, but I still think it was very well done in that respect. And so that was good. In the booths, I didn't see any food and beverage that was labeled there, but that is really kind of up to the exhibitors themselves. So let's see if I can do this really quickly. I'm going to show my screen here. Let's see. Oops, can't do that yet. So I've got to figure that. I'll figure that out in a second so that I can show you some pictures. But so I think overall, I think it was really well done. The restaurants in Mandalay Bay, especially Border Grill, does a really good job. That's my favorite restaurant in Las Vegas and at Mandalay Bay. They did a really good job. And there was actually another restaurant I ate at on the closing night before I flew home. The waitress was very well informed of what was being served and what was in the ingredients that was in the dishes that we were looking at. So I was really pleased with that. And if you've seen my posts in the past, I also love the fact that the restaurants in the Mandalay Bay, on their hostess stand, they actually have their health inspection score posted on the side of their hostess stand. So as you're walking by, you can actually see that A grade or 90, 95, not 100% A grade on their hostess stand before you actually enter. And I think that's really, really important for us as meeting planners to really understand and take and manage. So so that was good. And overall, I think the vibe at the show was fantastic. There were lots of people, as I said, and I think just overall let me see if I can get these pictures up here. I'm finding them here. Oh, I did really love as well is they had the Misfit Market. This is on the IMEX show floor, and it was a market of juices that was sponsored by the World Wildlife Fund. And the World Wildlife Fund had, let's see, I'm going to hit present here. Share screen. Here we go. Share screen. Let's do this real quick. Where are my pictures? We're going to share my screen really quickly. Let me hide these things. And so I'm going to talk while I'm doing this. The Misfit Market was juices that were made from fruits and vegetables that me and DeLay had in stock and were potentially going to throw away. So they used those to make juices. And that was readily available and for purchase in the back of the house. So that was nice. And okay, so let's do this real quick. And we're going to show this screen. Let's see if that works. Do you see that screen? Nope, you're not seeing anything there. That's my, forget it. We're going back to here. Trying that out for the first time didn't work too well. So we're just going to scrap that. But Wildlife Fund had some good signage with the Misfit Market. Food is precious, not trash, with the message that said, did you know that 1/3 of food goes to waste? And their mission, World Wildlife Fund, is to reduce food waste at every meal. So you can check them out. I will actually put the link to their hotel kitchen program that actually has different modules for planners and chefs and sous chefs, etc. And one of the other signs that they had there, when I said 1/3 of all food goes to waste, it says 11% of the estimated global methane emissions came from landfills, and landfills is where the food goes. 70% of fresh water is used in agriculture and food production. That's crazy that 70% of the water that we use on a daily basis goes to agriculture and food production. And so we're only utilizing 30% for drinking and all of that. So we need to learn how to reduce waste so that we're not using as much. The wildlife population has declined by 70% due to expanding agriculture. So we need to actually learn how to use the current farms that we have without tearing down trees to actually make those farms more regenerative, make sure the soil is healthier, and that we're buying from those farmers locally when we're working with our chefs. Another stat from the World Wildlife Fund says that 40% of food production uses over 40% of habitable land, causing 80% of deforestation, which again goes back to, let's not deforest our land. Let's keep that there and use our land better with share crops. And I know that's big for a meeting planner to understand what that means, but it's actually talking to your chefs and understanding where are they sourcing their food and beverage from. And the last stat from them is that nearly 1/3 of people globally do not have access to adequate food in 2020. That's scary. And think about that. 1/3 of people in globally don't have access to the food. Well, we waste 40% of our food. Oh, what, more than 1/3. So what can we do with that extra food? And that's actually really trying to figure out how much we're ordering, as well as what we can do with any leftover food that we have, partnering with local organizations to do that. Next week on the show, I have Shauna McKinley, who is a sustainability expert. She's going to be on the show to talk a lot more about this as well, because I think one of the things that's very daunting is, where do you get started? How do you become more sustainable with your events? How can you implement these things into your events without costing you a lot of money and without taking up a lot of your time? And so we will be talking on some of those ways that you can possibly do that. One of the things that I want, and if you saw last week, I was live 4 days, so I had some great guests. I had Chef Sean Sherman, who is the 3 times James Beard Award-winning chef from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and he just won his restaurant, just won Best New Restaurant for 2021. And he's an Indigenous chef, and with his restaurant and his nonprofit, he's doing a lot of really good work in educating us on the native foods from here in the U.S. And nothing at his restaurant is served that was only things. Let me get this right. Things in his restaurant on his menu are pre-colonial. So there's no dairy, there's no wheat, there's no black pepper, there's no pork, beef, cow beef, or chicken on the menu, because those were all brought over from the English when they came. So it's all free of those different ingredients. because he's really wanting to educate us on what is actually native to the US, and that it's not bad to have, food that's from other countries, but we really need to utilize what we have here, and that will actually help with the deforestation as well. Um, on Tuesday, I talked to Rudd Jansen, and how food and beverage can be and should be part of the creative design model, and how that can actually help implement and execute your events to make sure that your attendees get all of your stakeholders get what they are paying for and what they are looking for with your events. On Wednesday, I spoke to David Stevens, and we talked about he was doing a session at IMEX called, which is about wellness, and that included movement, meals, and mindfulness. And actually, I think it's movement, mindfulness, and meals. Meals comes less. So if we can get our attendees moving, we can get our attendees more mindful of what's going on, and provide an environment that actually helps them learn, helps them connect with themselves and with everyone else at the event. And then we feed them what they need to eat to be more, to be healthier and more nutritious food options. Then all those three things tie together. And then on the last episode on Thursday, I talked to an Eating at a Meeting Facebook group member, Katie Culp, and I got to meet her for the first time while I was at the show. And I was excited to learn that her niche is actually helping organizations who host events for people with disabilities. And so she gave us a lot of good insight on how to design our registration sites and plan our events for individuals of all abilities. And so I thought that was a really good conversation with her. So it was overall, I had a great time. And I did 2 sessions as well with my friend, taught 2 more education sessions with my friend from Levy Convention Center, Thomas Whalen. And one was called Where's the Chicken? And the other one is How to Feed Fickle Eaters, and how to utilize fickle eaters, which to enhance your overall food and beverage experience. And so we had some great conversations in both of those sessions. And it's a challenge, but it's something that needs to be done. It helps reduce food waste. It helps reduce your budget, and it helps increase your attendee satisfaction because they're getting something that they need. A couple of things that Thomas pointed out in the Where's the Chicken session, which was about sourcing our food and beverage, is that it really is kind of hard to find the chicken and find some of the things. He's low on butter, low on ginger ale, low on sodas, low on chicken, and figuring that out. So he really emphasized the need for planning your menus well in advance, and also being flexible. That we need to say, okay, hey, we want filet mignon and we want a side that's seasonal, and the chef can actually just come up with that as we get closer, just based on what he can procure for your event. So we need to be a little bit flexible in that, but understanding that he's going to keep that menu in the same price range that you need, but making it more flexible with what is available at the time, which is great for seasonality and more nutritious fruits and vegetables that we're serving. So I thought those were some good points that Thomas had, and it was a good conversation with our attendees there. Now, jumping to a different little bit of a conversation that one of the attendees that I met was talking about is, concessions at an event. And she plans a lot of trade shows. And so she was wondering, how do you manage concessions at an event with individuals' dietary restrictions? So we had a really good conversation about, hey, the convention center is putting that on, what do I need? They've got that covered. I don't need to really worry about it. But in a way you do, because we'll use IMEX for an example. I'm like, if you don't have options, those 3,000, 4,000 buyers that IMEX has, on the show floor, they're having to leave that show floor to go get food. And IMEX had really good options this year, so I'm not saying that happened there. But if you don't have options for attendees that have different dietary restrictions, and I would estimate that 10 to 15% of your attendees do, so 4,000, that's 400 people that are potentially leaving the show floor to go find something that they can eat, right? Or they're packing it in their bags and they're munching it on in between appointments. But even think about those attendees. You have 12,000, or let's see, 4,000, 8,000 attendees. That's 800 to 1,000 people. Did I do my math right? 10% of 10,000, or 8,000, yes, is 800. I did my math right. That's 800 people that are leaving the show floor to go get something to eat. The show floor is designed, you're designing that show floor so that your attendees, your sponsors, your exhibitors, and your buyers are all there on the show floor networking with each other. And if they actually have to leave the show floor because there's nothing for them to eat, they're losing out on potential business, they're losing out on potential networking, and that's not what they came for, right? They came to actually to do that on your show floor, and you want to make sure that you're enhancing that opportunity for them. And to go along with that, you need to understand what is around you. Vegas has got lots of restaurants, within walking distance of every single casino and hotel, within the hotel and even outside. But there's an event I did a couple of years ago. There were only 4 restaurants on the property that we were at, and they couldn't hold more than 30 people. And we had over 2,000 attendees at our event. So they had no option to go anywhere, to have, food and beverage outside of the convention center floor. So it really did doing it on the convention center floor made it even more important, because they're kind of stranded because our hotel was not within walking distance of restaurants outside of the hotel. So thinking about those things when you're planning a trade show is really, really important. What are the food and beverage options that are there? So I think that attendee, gained some good knowledge from our conversation on that. But it does really mean having conversations with your food and beverage partners at your convention centers and hotels, and what are their capabilities. Another one of the questions from one of the attendees with my session with Thomas on the fickle eaters, how to feed fickle eaters, was, how do we get past the CSM, or how do we get to the chef to talk about it? And Thomas just said, if you can't talk to the chef, then you need to find a new venue. That's easier said than done when you've already signed the contract. But that really reiterated the point that you actually have to have these conversations before you sign the contract. See if you can talk to the chef at that point, on your site visits, when you're procuring, when you're sourcing the event, and asking the questions of them, what are your capabilities about doing this? Because, if you can only say, oh, well, we'll do our best to accommodate you, then what does that actually mean for an attendee, right? I don't know what that means. And if food and beverage comes with my event registration form, and you're saying we'll do the best that we can, then I want you to explain that a little bit more. So understanding what that means and getting the capabilities of your hotel properties and your chefs is really, really important before you actually sign that contract. You don't have to pick your menus at that point, but actually have a good idea of what you're going to do that. One other point that Thomas said that I thought was important, custom menus are actually going to cost you some more, which we all know when we're looking at our hotel contracts. But the pre-printed menus, those are designed and priced out ahead of time. So then when they're giving them to you, they are priced out. Those are based on current market rates and prices that they've done. And make sure that you're getting current ones, because those might change, with the seasons as well with what's going on in the market. So make sure you're getting current menus, but having that conversation. So, stick with those, because they're also an ability to reduce waste, because the hotel is used to planning those menus and used to doing that. But if you do need some customization, have those conversations up front, so that you can get a little bit of an adjustment with that if you can. I know that a couple of menus that I've worked on lately is like, if you ask for custom menus, your 10%, 20% discount on food and beverage is null and void. So looking at that, and if you've got anybody If you can negotiate that out, that's great, or negotiate that 20% even on the custom menus. That's a really good option to get, but sometimes that's not doable. All right, so some other things in the news. What have I seen? I did see that since I'm going to New York, I was excited to see this, that the 11 Madison Park, which went vegan during COVID, it actually just earned, it actually kept its 3 Michelin stars after going vegan. I thought that was really interesting. So that Chef Daniel Hum went vegan during COVID, like I said, but the fact that it's still up to the level of where he was before going vegan, I think is really telling in the quality of the service as well as in the quality of the food. So I thought that was really interesting because he's doing it to fight climate change, and he's not using any animal-based products at the restaurant. And he is maintaining, and actually it says here that it is the first vegan restaurant with 3 Michelin stars. So not sure I'll be able to get in there when I'm in New York since I haven't tried, but I know there is a new list of Michelin stars in New York that I need to check out. But let's see, some other things that I saw. We still do need to be paying attention to the war in Ukraine and how that is impacting the global food crisis. So because it is one of the #1 exporters of food for around the world. And we need to make sure that you're paying attention to that. We really do want it to end as soon as possible, but how can we do that? Pay attention to that. The next thing too is that I mentioned this earlier in the year that in California, they what did they do? How do you call that? They the residents of California actually made it a law that California's Proposition 12, which defines how much space breeding pigs, veal calves, and egg-laying hens should have in captivity. So they wanted to make sure that all the pork coming into and used in California actually met had certain stipulations on how much space that the pigs actually had. And at the time of that in January, there were only like 4 farms in the country that actually did that. But now the Supreme Court is actually hearing that case and is going to make a decision on that. It's a contentious case about the state of life. And this is from Food Dive. A contentious case about the state of livestock confinement is headed to the Supreme Court with the potential to upend the way the meat and egg producers conduct sales of their products between states. So I'm going to be paying a lot of attention to that to see how that impacts pork coming into the state of California. So that was something I saw, and I'll post that story. Actually, I'll just do that now. So that you all can read that and stay up to tune on that. That's kind of exciting and challenging as well on what we do. Because does that mean pork, your bacon's going to be limited at your events, or how much is it going to increase the price? So I think that's all I've got for today. And I hope that was a good recap of IMEX. Again, it was a great show, over 12,000 attendees there, 3,300 attendees, 3,300 exhibitors, and 4,000 buyers. So I think that's a good sign for our industry. And we're going to keep going forward with that. So until next week, stay safe and eat well. I'll talk to you later. Bye.